No, it is Friday morning here, East Coast time, wherever you guys are at right now, Friday morning. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining Because Cannabis. My name is B.C. Wehman and Dustin Kava. He's in that box, whatever other side of the screen you are checking out. Thank you, everyone, for joining the show. It's Friday. That means it's a time for another live episode. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, Wayward Media. You're watching right now. Click that button. Subscribe for us on Wayward Media. Help us spread the word. We got some great casual conversations, highbrow conversations, sometimes about lowbrow topics here on Because Cannabis. So give us a subscription if you can. Be sure to follow us socially at MeetWM, MEETWM at MeetWM. You can check us out, follow us there, as well as Dustin got the audio working for the show now. We are a podcast audio only as well as video. Do they need to see your face, Dustin? Is your face an important part of it? Because they can be here Fridays on YouTube to watch if they need to see that beautiful mug of yours. But they want to just hear you deep inside their ear holes. Check us out audio-wise. iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. The new shows, they're about a week behind our live show. So if you want to see the new hotness, join us Fridays on YouTube. About a week and a half later, 2 weeks later, they'll appear on the audio. What do you think, Dustin? Do you have a face for radio or a face for video?
I don't know. I think if you watch the video, you could probably watch my beard grow. It grows so fast. So, it would be kind of neat to see. But other than that, I am I think the video, I think you need to see me smile to know whether I'm serious or not.
All right. Well, if you're listening right now on audio, thank you very much. Be sure to follow us, whatever platform you're on. Leave us a rating, type some text in there, 5 stars. We'd appreciate it. If you're watching live, that's where you get to see us. Guest show today, Dustin. I'm always excited about the guest shows. It means we don't have to talk as much, which I like. We don't have to talk as much, and we get to learn. Both of us are fans of continuing our education when it comes to both business, when it comes to life, when it comes to this plant, cannabis, that we enjoy talking about. And today's guest, Reverend Kelly Addison, I think is someone who's going to help us on that path. I tell you about her, and I probably could do a decent job. I'm strong with my research, but how about we just bring her in and let her tell her about herself? Look, there she is. Look at that big smiling face. She's coming to us from the state, the country up north from where we're at in Ohio, and Kelly from Canada. Reverend Kelly Addison, welcome to the show. How you doing this morning?
Hi, you guys. Yeah, I'm in a different country. You're in the United States of America. I'm up here in Canada. So, hi down there. Hi.
It's both shocking, but at this point in time in technology should seem very commonplace. But yet, when you have a Zoom call or a long distance call like this on video that is clear as day with someone who is hundreds, 1,000 miles away, different time zones, different countries, it seems surreal in some weird way. Like it shouldn't happen, even though we're so globally connected through technology these days. It's a little weird still, though, right?
We're in the metaverse.
Oh, now we're going deep. We're going deep into the rabbit. It's a little too early. It's 9:15, 9:20 in the morning here. It's a little too early to go that deep into the metaverse, Kelly Addison.
Okay, we'll save it for a little later.
Yeah, save that for, that's more like an afternoon show. We're going to do a 4-hour, 20-minute stream on Sunday or on Wednesday, April 20th. So maybe that's the day that we go deep into the metaverse, about 3 hours into that show.
Yes.
Kelly, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming aboard. Dustin and I were very excited when you agreed to come on because, especially Dustin, but myself, well, I'm trying to calm down a bit. We talk often, or at least he does, about kind of the spirituality of the plant, the positivity of what it can do, and those kind of healing aspects to it is where I tend to think of his business. And Dustin, don't get me wrong, he loves his blockchain, he loves his technology, but we also appreciate that. So, that's kind of where you're at with it. And so that's Kelly Addison now. And before we get started, before we talk about Kelly's Green Lounge, kellysgreenlounge.ca, check it out. That's the Canadian URL for everyone out there. kellysgreenlounge.ca. Before we talk about that, let's go back in time. Where is Kelly Addison or when you are, high school, college age? Like, what's that like for you in a country? I assume you've been in Canada your whole life. Is that when you discover the plant? Is it well after? What's a young, burgeoning adult Kelly Addison like well before she gets into where you're at now?
It's so funny. Look, I have it right beside me. See this box?
Yes.
It's so funny that I have it right beside me. I've had this box for 30 years. And inside this box are cards that have cannabis plants on them that were trading cards from 30 years ago. I swear to God. Wait, I had this necklace. There's this earring that had a pot leaf on it from, I swear, like probably about 28 or 30 years ago. This box is so old. And that's when I was a teenager. I was a teenager and I was a wild, 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 wild
Oh
teenager.
my.
And yeah, for sure. And I didn't connect to it spiritually. It was just the thing, like I hung out with rock people and bands, and I was, always hanging around radio stations and stuff, and everybody was just smoking weed, and so I was smoking weed too. But it didn't seem like a medicine or spiritual or anything like that. It was just me being a teen.
Wild Kelly Addison back in the day with the rock bands. It is something, it's weird. There is the medicinal aspect to it, and the healing aspect, which we'll talk about a lot. But, there is a market, right? Not only a market, but a reason for the adult use part of it, the vice part of it, the kind of fun vibe. But it is interesting how throughout much of musical history, cannabis is kind of really goes hand in hand with musical creation and creativity. And so as soon as you mentioned that, like you could have had a variety of artistic type people, and surely poets and actors and stuff as well. But music, right? Musicians really tend to have a lot of history with using it creatively. I'll tell you the first time, if I have to go back in time, and I don't know when the first time you remember, Dustin, seeing cannabis used in mainstream. Back to the Future, right? The film with Marty McFly, whose name? Oh my gosh, Michael J. Fox. Going back in time, he goes to save the band, and the band that he fills in for, right? The soulful band that's playing the Fish at the Sea, he's talking a little bit, right? And I remember, like, what was that? I assumed it's a cigarette. I didn't know, and it was like 10 years. I'm like, oh my god, he was smoking weed on camera. Like, I didn't even get it. I think that's the first reference I had to cannabis usage in its musical connotations, which always makes me, I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I love the Doors. So I started reading about the Doors when I was about 12 or 13. And I was look for anything with Jim Morrison, and he usually had cannabis with him. So that was my first sort of eye to eye with cannabis.
Dustin, musical cannabis history, go. Apparently that's where we're at right now.
Oh my gosh. I can't even remember the first time I seen cannabis on screen. I think and actually understood, or even I think I've been oblivious to it my whole life until I was about 17 years old. And then all of a sudden the world just kind of opened up and, changed everything for the next decade and a half.
It is like that sometimes. When was that moment for you, Kelly? If you had that, if you were wild, wild Kelly, rock band Kelly hanging out with the musicians, token to get high and feeling the free love, when did it become, at what point does that Kelly become closer to where you are now in the Reverend Kelly Addison? So when does that switch? When does that moment fire up, pun intended, in your brain?
Not even 5 years ago. So soon, because it was I worked in the music industry for most of my life, and then I became a teacher. But I was always a hippie, and I was always like making pot brownies and cookies and whatever, but certainly not thinking of it as, this is making me healthy, this is making me better. And then towards legalization, when more people were having the conversation, and still being a teacher, and people were coming to me and asking me questions because they knew that it was just something in my life, and I'm going, well, I better go learn about that a little bit more so I can answer them and help them, parents and such. And then I went, it's a what? I have an endo what? And then I was just like, oh my God, they took this from us. They took this from us for so long. And then I just started screaming and screaming about it, and went back to school and university courses and anything I could take to learn more and more and more. And then the story began, because at that point in time, there had to have a conversation with that. It wasn't just me toking up with my friends anymore.
Were you part of the Canada's cannabis medicinal program? I think they launched, 2001, somewhere in that. Is that something you were part of? So you were not really into that. You got more, if it's 4 or 5 years ago then, so you're kind of a year or two before Canada goes adult use. I think that was fall of 19. Is that somewhere? I think it's fall of 19 that they went adult use.
October.
Was that something that you were pushing for? Were you part of that effort in getting that done? Like, what was that time? So it sounds like a few years before that is when you kind of really embraced it. And then you see this swoosh, right? This burgeoning movement towards the adult use, because they sat very comfortably, right, in medicinal for a long time. Uruguay legalized in 2013. They became the first country really to go adult use. But then there was this time frame. No one was really touching it. It's a topic that comes up every year there's a bill. There's a bill right now today. I read this morning in the US to legalize. They always fail. It's just too much. But Canada, and I'm curious, why the push? Like, I wasn't obviously on the scene or aware of it. What was the system like? What was the populace like? Why do you think Canada took that push to go ahead and make it adult use? And why not just ride comfortably medicinal like many, many, many other countries, European countries? Why do you think Canada decided to go all in and become the second country?
I think there's a couple of reasons. I think, and I am privileged to work with the advocates that did pound the pavements, that did get the petition signed. Some of my colleagues, I have a radio show, and my co-host, he's been doing it for 20 years. And like, he was somebody that would stand on the corner of Toronto streets and scream and make magazines and hold conferences and clubs and lounges. And these people, they worked and worked and worked. And I pay tribute to them as often as I can, because they're patients. They're medical patients that were learning to save their lives with this plant. There is one such patient. His name is Jack Kungle. If you get a chance to watch the documentary Jack's Garage, he's been making medicine and teaching people how to do it around the world for 13 years and saving people's lives by the thousands. And these are the real people that came about. They were the people that went to court and broke themselves going to court. There was people that lost their lives because they were so sick and they couldn't get their medicine in enough times. And this stuff still is happening globally. It's happening in your country because it's not legalized. But when it was happening and the bubble around it, I was not part of that. I was simply hanging out and still living that free spirit hippie lifestyle, going to rock concerts and not recognizing that this was people's medicine. So that wasn't me. But when I learned of it, that's when the fight started, and I started fighting. And I've been an advocate and a big voice ever since I learned, and I will shout it anywhere I can. I've written a course on how to talk to your kids about it because I think it's so important. There are just a lot of things that have to change here and even in your country. I think you're muted, my friend.
Yeah, you got to unmute. I was trying to unmute you on my end, but I can't do it.
That would be helpful. We still every once in a while technical glitches happen live. What are you going to do? Thank you both. Kelly's been here before. Kelly's a professional. She gets out there. She knows. She can see the sign. I was going to say that sounds a lot like Dustin. Like, Dustin, you have these very impassioned speeches about education, about the medicine. You get really emotional about it. I feel like I've heard what Kelly said from your same mouth many times. You guys should like are simpatico right now. That's what I'm learning. You're very buddy.
And it matters. I mean, you can't, I mean, when you're talking about it changing someone's life and you've actually have talked to the people where it has changed their life, it's almost impossible to look at it any other way and to not want to fight for it. I mean, these are people who may not have been able to get up and go to the bathroom by themselves, or, you know, it's just the day-to-day struggle is just so unfathomable. So for most people that like, they can't comprehend that, but yes, it truly can change their life for the better. And actually, you know, allow them to focus more on the enjoyment of what time they have left or you know, whatever. I think it's incredibly powerful.
You know, I want to talk about Kelly's Green Lounge, and obviously there's a moment, right, that switch that fired up where you decided to take your usage, even to take your understanding of the medicinal and invite more people in. But you brought up something that we've talked about before, Dustin. Dustin and I, both parents. I think you got one. I don't keep track of your kids, Dustin. My bad. I got like 4 and counting. Who knows what I got going on in this household? So I got a lot of kids, right? Of varying ages, from high school on down. And it's something, as it becomes more legal and as it becomes more commonplace, I'm curious, how has that been, not only for you, and you just talked about working with children and kind of studying on how to communicate, but one of the big fears, right, reefer madness type fears of legalization in the US that some people spout is, what about the kids, right? Like, oh my gosh, they're all going to be high all the time. They're just going to be hotboxing at 6. Like, they get freaked out, like this thought that, oh my, in every Halloween, and I imagine you have this in Canada, I would think, like we get serious scares that some apparent customer of cannabis is going to start giving away all their very expensive edibles to the hundreds of children. Like, who's going to drop for every, I go through like 150 pieces of Snickers every year. There's no way I'm giving out that's expensive. That's too much money. No one's doing that. So, what has it been like? Like, talk to me a little bit because I struggle with that. How do I talk to kids, both high school age,
Mhm.
younger age, and someone who's thought about it, been educated on it, and seen what an adult use country is like
Yeah.
in the reality of it? Just talk to me a little bit about kids and those conversations that parents can have because it shouldn't be awkward. It shouldn't be. It is, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I have a very on the different end of the spectrum point of view about that.
Let's hear it.
It's scary to hear it sometimes. I actually fully believe that children should be consuming cannabis. And I'm not saying they should have THC by any means. I'm not even saying that they should have CBD by any means. What I'm saying is that there's enough compounds and cannabinoids in this plant that we can figure out what vitamin their ECS needs from birth so that they can be healthier, so that they can be the best person that they can be as they grow and build and nurture their bodies. I fully believe we need cannabis right from birth. We receive the cannabinoids from our mother's breast milk, which is the only other place other than our beautiful plant that we get those cannabinoids that our bodies need. And once we stop taking in that breast milk, we stop taking in cannabinoids. It's okay to have the hemp that the plants or the hemp plants and then the hemp that the animals would eat. Sure, we're receiving it there, but the real medicine comes from the cannabis plant, the plant that we call marijuana. And so if you do not consume that yourself, and if children don't consume that themselves, then we're not getting the balance in them. They're not entering into homeostasis, which is what we absolutely need to be in to be the optimal human that we are and to achieve the balance and have the most fulfilling life. We can live for a lot longer than 100 years if we balance ourselves from birth. Now, it's hard. There's a stigma. It's a scary, scary thing to even have this conversation. My course is How to Talk to Your Kids About Cannabis. I have a Muppet called Mama Earth, and she talks, and I do a little voice. I've written a children's book about Candace, the cannabis plant, and she grows in a garden, and she's so ugly with her orange hairs, and all of the other flowers make fun of her. But then the little boy whose garden they love so much, he needs the medicine, and then she ends up having crystals, and the other plants end up loving her so much. We're publishing it; it'll be out this summer, because I think that children need to recognize little Isaac in the book needs that medicine because he has epilepsy. A lot of other children do. And I would much rather have my teenager, who's 14, choose a 2.5 milligram gummy than an alcoholic beverage when he starts to have teenage partying, or something from a friend's parents' medicine cabinet, which is going to make him sick and the other children there. I would much rather my teenager choose cannabis. And that's the conversations that I have. My son can fully tell you about the endocannabinoid system. He can fully talk to that. And he talks about it frequently to his friends. He would absolutely understand that choosing. He's not ready for that yet. He's not in high school yet. But when he is, that's the conversation that we're going to have. I would much rather him choose that recreation. So we've got this. We've got parents hiding in the bathroom and in their garages and not allowing their children to see them consume cannabis, but they can hold their wine or their beer. And that's a conversation that needs to happen with the children at that point in time, because it is much better for you to have a plant than alcohol. And you're teaching your children, it's okay. You know what? Actually, could you go get me that beer from the fridge, little Tommy? But you have to hide in the garage with your joint, right? So there's it's a big spectrum, my friends, when it comes to talking to your kids about cannabis. And it just really has to be, the stigma must leave, because this is a plant and everyone should have it.
It's weird, right? We've talked about that just recently, Dustin, on one of our past episodes. The difference in both marketing and acceptance of alcohol. I think we were talking when we talked about the Super Bowl and how it's so prevalent there, and the alcohol ads and such, and then the cannabis centric ads, both silly, and then they had some serious, right? Trying to either play on both your heartstring emotions or kind of make light of it. Neither one of them has been accepted by the Super Bowl, even though neither one of them really talks about the plant. There was the broccoli guy and then that. So it's very much the stigmatism about it. Yet, as you were just saying, Kelly, you can say there's the whole mommy wine movement and there's all this other alcohol things, which is perfectly socially acceptable. And you're talking to a garage hider. So I feel you. I understand you where you're at there. That's where I'm currently at right now. But I'm good with my place. I'm good with my spot there. Dustin's probably
Absolutely.
less so. But it is something that is real. It's very real, you know, and I have this conversation often. I have some, I guess, swag, some shirts from different venues that we've had, and a couple of them openly talk about like cannabis or have the belief on it.
Yeah.
If I worked for a brewery, Jack Daniels, I would clearly be able to go into my kid's school and pick them up, and they would say like, cool. If I wore that in, not happening. Like I can't do that.
Oh,
I have to change my shirt. I have to cover it up. I would never do that because it would be a thing, right? It's still a thing here. But if I was the other
whoa.
way, so you have to walk a little bit. Like I have to walk on that line, and I struggle sometimes with how to balance it. I appreciate your comfortability in it. It makes me feel good. I'm not a comfortable person by nature, Kelly. I am nervous in my own head all the time. So I love to see when someone has found complete acceptance of like who they are, which is why I gravitate toward you, Dustin. You're a person like that. You guys remind me a lot of each other in that weird way. You're comfortable with who you are, right? And that's, I think, a big part uh, of that. How was it then on the other end with the kids and the adult use in those days shortly after October 2019? I'm sure there were people who were freaking out. I'm sure was it like that? Was there media? Talk is Canada is driven by like sensational media. Is the US? Is it really pushing like, hey kids, it's gonna go crazy. We're gonna have stoners everywhere. Like hide the kids. Was there a scare from it when it legalized adult use, or was it just Tuesday?
It was our country really failed. I mean, Uruguay didn't do much better. South Africa didn't do much better. Like the nations, it's a hard thing to legalize. Our country did not do the best job. So when we legalized, it was almost we went, okay, you can have a little bit, like you can have a little bit of legalization. We only had, I think, 25 stores. There's like the windows are covered, like it's, you can't see inside. There's rules about from province to province. Like in Quebec, you have to be 21 to consume cannabis, but only 18 to consume alcohol. And in Manitoba, you can't grow your 4 plants, but everywhere else you can. So there's just a little bit of oddities, and our country really failed when it came to unrolling adult use legalization. But I will say this, more people became open-minded. There's certainly more wonderful cannabis educators, cannabis programs, cannabis education in colleges now, in universities in our country. It's really, really blossom and bloom. The apocalypse didn't help with this. We would have had a lot more lounges like mine, and there would be a lot more education, I'm sure, with it. Are there groups that protest about it? Certainly. Are there parents out there that parents against blah, blah, blah? I'm sure there are. But we have a lot of requirements when it comes to the consumption, when it comes to being able to be in public, or you can't be around children. So we have the rules that are in place for that. I think we should change them, but they're there for sure.
We're definitely, used to those rules in our state. Though it's illegal, for patients, you can't consume it or smoke it. You have to vape it. You have to. There's very strict laws on how you can get it into your system, and then very strict laws on your daily limits or your weekly limits or whatnot. And again, the same thing where, only so many, a handful, a dozen places to purchase it throughout, the whole state. So we definitely can understand that we didn't quite get it right, but we're happy the ball is moving.
Yeah. Have you heard of those things, Kelly, where they put, so in several states, we have this issue where we don't have federal legalization. So we have, because of just the way the Constitution was set up in the US, like states have rights to govern themselves, basically, as long as the federal government says it's okay, which is how we got the Compassionate Use Act of 96 from California, which is how we got the 2 initiatives in 12 from Colorado and Washington, right, which pushed the boundaries. And so the government responds. But as long as the state's okay, right, the federal government kind of looks the other way. But because of that, we have state by state by state by state by state laws. And I don't just mean medicinal versus adult use, though that we do have that. Every state sets their own parameters. And we are a state where, for health reasons, right, we'll put that air quotes out there. You can't see that if you're listening audio, but for health reasons, Ohio, where we're at, adopted some other states' legislative writings, which say you can purchase the product, but you can't smoke it, combustion, right? You can't put a lighter, you can't put fire to the plant. So what that does is, on a business side, it limits like pre-rolls and selling of glass and consumable devices in the retail stores and dispensaries.
Okay.
It makes it for people like Dustin, who's a former owner of smoke shops and hayables in Brunswick, Ohio. Shout out former owner. Made it very complicated because you still can't say those devices are for you. You still have to tiptoe. So it becomes weird because you know what patients are doing. They're going to go home and roll it in a paper and smoke it in a joint. They're going to go home and put it in their bowl, but you have to pretend still like we're legal, but we're still pretending, like putting our fingers in our ears and saying, la, 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 you don't, so it's a little weird that way.
Wow. Wow. And so what about edibles and tinctures?
Those are allowed. There are, certain barriers too with the amount of milligrams of THC that's allowed to be in them.
Yeah, we got a lot of caps on flower THC, on concentrate THC, besides the strict testing and stuff. But as Dustin said, a lot of caps to make sure you don't get too much.
So you can have extracts.
Yes, we can have extracts.
So extracts are okay.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And their daily limit on extracts is actually insane to the daily limit that I can have on my flower. So, I would be what I would use in a week and a half or 2 weeks worth of extract is a day's worth in Ohio. What I would use in 1 day worth of flower is probably the equivalent of a tenth of a day to like what I mean is, every time I buy an eighth, which we can't even buy an eighth. We're not allowed to buy it in 3.5s. We have to buy them in tenths. We have to buy them in 2.83 grams is our serving size we get. That is a daily limit size that you're allowed to have technically here. That's what, not really a limit, but that's kind of how they're doing it. The same equivalent to my daily limit would be an entire gram of oil, to that 2.8 of flour. Yeah. Which is just insane to me. So, and again, if you get a higher percentage THC in your medicine, then the daily limit goes down and you're only allowed to purchase so much of it for the month. And so, you need
a math degree to purchase cannabis in our state.
Like you really do.
Yeah. Finance degree to be an accountant to understand. And they've made, to Ohio's credit, in some other states that have started more restrictive. And we have a state up north of us, Michigan, which is 2.5 hours from me, and it's about 10 minutes from some people that's full adult use, and that's what even adds it crazy. I can drive 2.5 hours and do whatever I want and buy whatever I want. Well, I have before, like we all have. And there's people who live right on the border who can literally drive across the border, have crazy restrictions, walk 10 feet and be able to, and there's stores, don't get me wrong, they're smart biz. There's stores really right on the border. Yeah, they're right there. Going across. They make it simple for you. So that adds even more into its weird hypocrisy. It's a very weird thing. Ohio has made those changes, but we can't talk openly still, right? It gets very apprehensive and nervous for people. So it's unfortunate. I don't know if we're going to move anywhere. I don't think the U.S. is anywhere close to legalization. We're probably going to deschedule. I think that makes more sense and let states do what they do. But it's tough because you drive.
My fingers are crossed for you. I feel like they will. I feel like it's going to be industry. It's going to be such, especially when cannabis tourism, when the world sees what happens with Canadian cannabis tourism in the next year or two. I sit on the Canadian Cannabis Tourism Alliance, and I will tell you, when things are about to open up with laws here, and when that happens, we will be the cannabis tourism destination in the world. We will surpass Amsterdam. And then when everybody else sees what the money coming in for that, they're going to be like what's happening in Reno right now down there with like festivals and party buses and lounges and acrobats inside Cannabis Lounge, like that's going to happen. And then federally, there's no way that your country is not going to go, hey, I think I just want to make a little bit more money. Like I know it's going to happen. They're greedy, greedy people. And then it will be federal. It might be 3 years. It might be a few more years for sure. But I think it will, because globally, it will have to happen. It will have to happen globally. It's a medicine. There's enough of us fighting. There's enough voices that saying, oh my God, hi, it's a plant. What are you doing? Let's go.
As you're talking, Kelly, I kind of just put something together, and I try to think about this all the time, that I really never occurred to me when it comes to the business side of cannabis in the lounge and the tourism part, which you talked about. And I'm excited to hear that you are a part of that, because I think that's a big thing. We can look at legal states like Illinois, which is closest to us, or Colorado, which have a big part of adult use in the U.S., similar to the Canada's. We put money, then taxation of it goes back into infrastructure for states. And states like Colorado have raised $1 billion in 7 years. With 8 billion in sales. Like, that's crazy, right? That's money. That's $1 billion. So, but Canada legalizing in the fall of 19, and and then coronavirus kind of sweeping across the world in 2020 really would have stopped in its tracks all this tourism business, and you haven't got there, you are correct. And I know you've been obviously saying, duh, this is what I've been fighting for, BC, for the last year and a half, but it really just dawned on me, holy, you are right. It is going to explode because of the restrictions. You haven't had time to build it. You give it a year or two, I think you are going to be a heavy tourism industry, places like Amsterdam and such, this golden goose, but you're so much more accessible once we lift the variety of border restrictions and things, which I think we're getting closer and
Yeah.
closer to every day.
Yeah.
That's going to be, it never really occurred to me, but it is
Wait
going to be
till you hear
crazy.
wait till you hear what just happened. So Alberta just legalized, they just changed the law that festivals and concerts can have cannabis delivered there to the patrons. That I'm getting goosebumps because it changes everything. Because now BC and Ontario are on track. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying this, gentlemen, are on track to have that happen this summer. When that happens, everyone is going to come to Canada for our parties, our festivals, our concerts. Everything is going to happen here. It's going to be boom, 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 and it's going to be quite lucrative. And I'm excited because I have partners and colleagues that work in Canadian tourism and the travel industry in our country. And Tracy Lamore, she's on the board. My publicist that set this up, she's on the board with me. And she's a publicist, a travel publicist as well. She's going to go crazy when this happens. So it's a beautiful thing, and it's nice to see.
You know what that would be like, Dustin, here? Like, I imagine we got a couple concert venues. Imagine going to your favorite concert venue, Dustin, and just having amongst it'd probably be overly priced. Let's be honest. Like, alcohol is crazy expensive at concerts, so you're going to overprice. People are going to bring their own, but open consumption at a concert, though it happens, that'd be pretty cool. I'd be down with that.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. And I'm kind of tired. I sew a pocket on the inside of my underwear so I could carry everything into the show. And I would be really happy to not have to do that anymore.
Hold on a second. All right. I know we've talked what we call stoner science a lot. You took your underwear and like literally cut out a section of it and like made a pouch in it?
Oh yeah. And not only that, but I put foam on the inside of the pouch so that when they pat you down, they can't actually feel these, whatever the hell you have in there.
Yeah.
And trust me, we have definitely, yes, exactly. And we have definitely been in those situations where they were really going at me down there, trying to figure things out. And it was good. It was really good.
It seems so silly now. It seems so silly as we talk openly about it and have these a country like Canada, which you can freely purchase. And it seems bizarre that you get patted down for having, 2 half-gram joints in your pocket. Like, that just blows like they'd be freaking out, given I could drive, as I said, to Michigan, or I can go across the border if I could get in and easily accessible.
Yeah.
That is
not anymore, though. I can carry openly containers of cannabis in my bag and my purse. I can walk around anywhere. Nobody's going to stop me. As long as you can consume like cigarettes in that place, like in the smoking section of places, you can consume your cannabis. I never hide my cannabis anymore. Never.
You're only about 5.5 hours from us, so I just might be taking a trip to you.
Come on up.
Well, if you went there, Dustin, we'd have to visit kellysgreenlounge.ca. So let's do that, Kelly. When you go from this and why, it's one thing to consume, have an adult use, like enjoy it, be an advocate, right? Be on the tourism board, promote people, help push the industry forward, sell it. Why create a space? Like, why get into this aspect that you've really delved into with Kelly's Green Lounge, the spiritualistic side, the kind of in real life lounge vibe? Like, why invite people into a space? Is it just for the connection, or what was that inspiration? And I know you got kind of derailed by COVID and had to switch to more of an electronic. What was that inspiration to say, I enjoy it? Sure, I enjoy it. Dustin enjoys it. I appreciate conversation around it. Sure, me too. I don't know if I want to sit around and bring people in together. That's always my jam. Why that? Why was it important to develop Kelly's Green Lounge? His initial concept, and then as it expanded into more of this electronic medium because of what COVID did?
I didn't really understand the power of the plant until I started talking about it on my own social media. And as I was doing that, people started following me and liking what I said, and it got bigger and bigger. And my Facebook group got bigger and bigger, and people started really liking. So I said, okay, well, maybe you would like to have the message in person. I'm going to be here today. And so I would pop up places, and then I would start interviewing. And then I did an audio podcast about these stories that I was hearing. And then more people were coming and more people coming. I'm like, okay, I think I need a little spot. So my village of Orono has 1,200 people. And when I opened up the lounge here, the mayor came and cut the ribbon. It was the cannabis lounge, and they knew, and it's fully green outside. Like, I painted the outside green, and like, it's a little spot, and people just really, really connected with it. So when we legalized in 2018 and I opened in 2019, so 1 year, October 17th, 2019, I opened the doors. And then it was like people came from everywhere to be here. They came from the US, they came from provinces. For 6 months, we were the destination spot for cannabis tourism. It was amazing. It was beautiful. We had bands, we had comedy, we had karaoke, we had sessions, we had workshops, and I can't even believe it. And then COVID hit, and we were forced to close our doors, and we've remained open for 2.5 years, but it's not the same as it was, certainly. And we did have to change, and we did have to pivot over and over and over again to do things. And we developed lots of brands. I'm sitting beside, looking at my flag right here, because this is where I do my podcast. And we have 5 brands under our network that we developed. We developed courses. We've developed like a media brand. We've developed the church, which is the religious body that's going to be recognized as the first cannabis religion in our country. We're working on that with the government, with Vital Statistics Canada. So it's been it's been crazy these past couple of years doing this in this actual space here. But what happened was people just connected with it, and they needed community. And that's what cannabis spirituality really is the connection to the plant, the connection to ourselves, and the connection to each other. And that just needed, and people were coming, and I became ordained as a minister during this process with cannabis spirituality as my designation. And that's what I teach. And I counsel humans that are in pain and need help, and they need healing with the plant and with words and love. And that's what this lounge is. It's become that.
Oh, that is good stuff. Dustin, aren't you ordained too? Didn't you tell me that? Did we just learn
I am.
What are you guys getting all ordained for, man? I got no time for that. You guys are all just like, give me my ordained. I actually, I want to hit pause, I guess, because I don't know if I knew that. Maybe I missed that part. So I knew you had talked about the spirituality, and I know that's a big kind of input, throughput through your, your vision and Kelly's Green Lounge. But I saw something about the church, but officially recognized. Talk to me a little bit more about this in that venue. Like, why take it into? It's one thing to say use it on a spiritual journey. It's another thing to incorporate lessoning, right? Kind of what spiritualism is in the Bible, and church is basically taking stories from the Bible and making lessons out of them each week, so you kind of feel that power. And so I would imagine it's that similar ilk. What's the reason to just take it more official and have it recognized? What was that impetus behind that?
So I will have to explain that if you had told me 20 years ago that I would be doing this, I would have laughed so hard. I was dancing on speakers in nightclubs. I was VIP section of rooftop patio parties. I was an agent and promoter for famous house music DJs. I toured the world with them in festivals. I put together large festivals in Iceland and Detroit, and would never have thought I was going to make a religion. Ever, 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 never. Wow. But it came that way, and the plant taught me that was what I was supposed to do. So now it's going to become a little bit, that's why I explained to you 20 years ago, that was not me. And then even a decade ago, when I was a teacher and I was a supervisor, never, ever, I was young minds shaping. So again, coming to this was something that really and truly took a lot of praying and understanding of the plant and the connection to it and the human heart and my own transition and journey from all of those different careers and pathways, and recognizing that, oh, this is an actual religion, but not in a religion in a Christian way. There's no dogma. There's no, I have to believe in God, thou must. You can believe anything. You can believe in Satan. You can believe in a tree. You can believe in anything you want, as long as you understand the connection to the plant and the plant's connection to you. And so that's really what cannabis spirituality is. And it took a lot of knowing and praying and understanding that that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm a Reiki master. so I do heal with energy. I've always healed. And I've always been a coach and a counselor and a mentor. And it sort of just fell into place. I was taking herbal courses and a holistic nutrition course, and things were just starting to understand what I was supposed to be doing. I felt it. I felt the call. As very strange, and go back to, I'm dancing on speakers. Like, I even lost hearing doing it. Going back to that and not recognizing, but really now fully and truly understanding that I can talk to Jesus and I can talk to the other angels around, and they're there and they love me, and there is truly a connection to spirit. I pray to Goddess. I pray of the earth, Mama Earth and Mother Earth, and really this plant and the healing, beautiful properties of it and what it can do for us. And so it just took that and the spiritual connection. And now I do a spiritual satsang show live every Sunday night, talking to people just about that hope and kind of the spirituality.
That is awesome. That's awesome. It just feels like you talk about goosebumps. Like as I'm listening there, I'm kind of just entranced, by the way you talk, Kelly. So do you have like a session? Do you have like a sermon, so to speak, or a lesson of the week, or is it more just continuing to find connection with the plant regardless of that? I mean, is that the goal? Like
all of it. Every Sunday night, I will talk live. And this week's theme is mind, body, spirit. And we have a guest, Jack Kungle, who I spoke of earlier. He's going to come and talk. He's actually been recognized as the prophet of our cannabis spirituality movement. I believe that he was saved. He was supposed to die, and he was on 25 pills, and they were giving him 90 days to live. And he went, F that. I don't swear. So I'll say he would, though. He said, F that.
He's like, he would say it.
He would say it. I'm going to go save my own life. And that was when it was illegal to do so. And he found a way to do it with the plan. And I believe he was saved for his message. And so he's going to come and talk about that and how we can't heal ourselves without healing our mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, sorry. I know. I'm definitely, I agree with every bit of that. I guess my question to you is, at what point, I always felt like the heart was the actual antenna, and that my mind, my brain, and my thoughts were more of like a window into that antenna, where it's at, what it's doing, almost as if, so my question to you is what exactly is the plant doing, in your head in your mind for everybody else with the spirituality of this? What is it that it releases some of the other thoughts that are going through their head? Is it, what exactly, do you consider happening on a, molecular level? Because I've explained to BC many a times, even how I think, a thought is projected out in the world and anybody else is picking up of those other thoughts that are put out. And, so I'm curious about, how exactly do you think that the cannabis plant resonates with most of these people in terms of their healing? And not just on like a disease level.
I can explain it. A lot of people use cannabis for anxiety and depression and helping with their neurotransmitters on our CB1 and CB2 receptors. And I think in that sense, that's really that energy healing, the calm that affects our energy and allows us to really be us. But I think that what is most important is that when we really connect with the plant, we actually really truly recognize it's saving our life. And I know for myself, this plant has saved my life. I haven't shared yet with you. I have a lot of neurodivergence, a lot of disorders and chaos up here. And I lived a lot of time in pain and mental anguish because of my disorders and the things that I go through and the pain that I put on my heart and the pain that I put on my soul. One of the things that I have been diagnosed with is complex Ptsd. That means that my brain has been through war almost with traumas. And in that sense, I didn't sleep for a long time, and I had anxiety, and I was in a lot more pain than I am now. And then when I recognized, oh my gosh, this plant is healing me, I need to figure out ways to consume it intentionally to heal myself. And at that point in time, that's when I realized this plant is saving me. I can recognize that when I need a tincture, I need a tincture. When I need CBD, I need CBD. When I need to consume by combustion, it's there, vaporization. If I need an edible to put me to sleep, I'm good. If I need a suppository because I have period cramps, all those things are going to help me, and I'm intentionally using them. That's my hero. The plant is my hero. The plant is my mother that's loving me. And so it's healed me. And that's the spiritual connection. And that's really the message that I tell, and the one that a lot of people that feel that way tell it as well. So I think that's why we do what we do.
It is amazing. And it's an interesting thing because it can, and when I say interesting thing, I mean the plant itself and the consumption of it, right? Because we have a variety of people consuming it for a variety of ways, whether it is purely that vice, that rock and roll creativity, and then we have this more medicinal aspect. But I really appreciate really I guess the thought and the research into the endocannabinoid system and the ECS. It is something that is this weird lost art. Let me tell you this, or let me ask you this, because we have so many people who have been on here who are comfortable with the endocannabinoid system, familiar with it. And something I always like to ask them, unless they're even doctors, when you first learned about it, when someone first explains the ECS and you have this like, oh my God, and you talked earlier about the mother's milk and how it is one of the earliest ways we have it. And then literally it's, we go cold turkey. We go cold turkey off our cannabinoids until we are whatever age we begin to consume again. It's literally like the hard thing, right? Anything going cold turkey is tough. When you first learned about it, who was it that taught you, and what was that like mind blown emoji vibe that you had when you're like, what? Like that exists in here? Like all this?
No one taught me. No one taught me. I researched it.
Found it on you. Okay.
Like I was saying, so I was hanging out with like people that consumed it, or back then we called it recreational purposes. It's now referred to as adult use, but that's what it was. And nobody was talking about the medicine of it. And then people were coming to me because they knew I consumed it, just because I was just open, and it never really bugged me to be that way. And so then I went, okay, so maybe I just need to learn why it's doing that. And that's when I started learning it. So I researched it. I took many courses. We have some wonderful university courses, a lot of online. The USA has a beautiful Trichome Institute in California that, oh my gosh, brilliant courses down there. I took all of their courses as well. So information is there, but knowing that information, some people feel that call to share that information and educate. And that's one of the things that I chose to do.
Well, let me give a quick shout out because I do know of the Trichome Institute, and they are doing good things. I am actually an instructor at the Cleveland School of Cannabis, which is rebranding because we could localize ourselves. We started as a brick and mortar educational institute trying to get employees into the workforce, and have grown into both an online, global, kind of mostly US based, but we have another version, the Harrington Institute, which is based on social equity and getting more diverse ownership based off orientation and gender and race. Started by former basketball player Al Harrington. So through there, as well as we have some career workforce programs put together. So I also am very familiar with it. I teach a lot of business centric classes. I talk about entrepreneurship, something you're familiar with. I also teach operation and logistics in a cultivation center. I'm more of the, like I said, the business mind part of it. So, but yeah, I think that's an important thing to do, to be educated in the different aspects, which is where I learned about the endocannabinoid system. Dustin, when did you first learn about the ECS? Like what's your ECS origin story?
Well, I mean, most people aren't sent to a Mormon military type school when they're 17 years old because they use the plant, and I was. And so my first parlay with it was, coming back out of a very we'll restart this. WASP, Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs, is a behavior modification school, and they have many of them throughout the world that are meant to kind of help troubled kids, or at least that's what the marketing is behind it. But at the end of the day, it is a very, very structured, very, very aggressive, very, very kind of abusive types of scenarios that happen in a lot of their schools. And when I was 17 years old, I was sent to one of them. A lot had to do with my use of the plant. And it wasn't until I came back after I turned 18, essentially being said, told that, you're not going to be able to talk to your family. You're not going to be able to, and everybody you ever knew is not going to be around anymore if you keep using. and the more and more I researched it, and the more and more I felt like, no, this is my medicine. It has helped me with my mental illness. It has helped me with literally every facet of my life. At the time, they said I had a back of a 65-year-old man, and I was 17 years old. And the truth is the plant has 100% changed everything for the better in my world. I'm able to get up. We were talking earlier about, most people don't even understand that it allows you to walk to the bathroom in some cases for some people. And there's a lot of that in my life in the early on stages where it's unbelievable the progress that was made. And I wholeheartedly believe that much of that is because of this plant. And so I would say 18, 19, so maybe, 10, 15 years ago is when I first heard about it. But it came because of that recognition that this is my medicine. And if it is my medicine, what exactly is it doing to my body?
I should give a quick shout out because you made me think. I took another deep dive. I host another podcast called Behind the Doc, an audio podcast where we interview documentary filmmakers. And I had a great conversation with David Yakubovich, who's an Israel-born American now living in New York, who made a wonderful film called CBD Nation, available on Amazon Prime. And they do a great 2 or 3 minute cartoon of sorts that breaks down the endocannabinoid system and how it works into it, along with telling stories. It introduces the D'Angelos, how CBD got first involved, how it was bred out in the 70s and brought back in. And they were one of the first people, the D'Angelo brothers, who also are part of Compassionate Use 96, of getting CBD out, using it to treat epilepsy, like treating a child in the mid 90s in the US, which nowadays in epilepsy and CBD usage, or even THC in children, while some people would panic, is readily acceptable. People move from, states like Texas to Colorado so they can give their children CBD or THC products for epilepsy and such, because you can't do it in these restrictive states. So it's a great documentary. If you have a chance, check it out. CBD Nation on Amazon Prime, and Behind the Doc with David Yakubovich. Speaking of which, we talked about, what was that film that Kim directed? We're going to have Kim, the director of, is it Men, the documentary?
Mend with Dignity is the follow-up. Jack's Garage was the first one. Jack's Garage, I won an award. They're both incredible documentaries. They are mind-blowing documentaries. Whenever anyone comes to me with a scare, like my aunt has just been diagnosed with cancer, or my child, I want to put on ADHD medication, I go, watch Jack's Garage. That's your first thing you have to do, and then come back to me, because that's the first sort of, okay, I understand the connection to the plant and healing.
It is pretty amazing. I watched Men with Dignity the other day. I was able to, shout out to Tracy, sent me a link, so I watched the screener of it. And so I'm looking forward to having Kim, the director, on, as well as a couple of the guests or of the main subjects of the film. So that'll be exciting. I always love talking to people, not only why they chose to turn that camera onto a certain subject, but what they learned and grew. And especially if we've had 2 films, both Jack's Garage and Men with Dignity, I got to imagine Kim as well has had an amazing journey and learning experience. That's one thing I took from David Yakubovich on CBD Nation, was someone who came into it as, this seems like an interesting topic, not really an advocate, not a promoter, right? He came with it with a very interesting question mark. And then through the course of 4 or 5 months in following families, and there are some, say now, there's some really tough moments, right? Some children's, and they show some episodes and breakdowns and what it's like before and after the introduction of CB into their system. And as a parent, it's hard, right? It's heart-wrenching and it pulls on it. But at the end of the day, when the credits roll, it's a journey, and you're like, man, like, I'm glad those people found it. I'm glad. And then, then I can view that and see the changes it's made. And I think that's a big part, right, Kelly? I think that's a big part of someone who's been out there promoting it, talking about the spirituality, is seeing kind of like the before and after, right? And maybe it's not even the usage. Maybe it's what I love from you and also from Dustin, the comfortability, right? There's that, once you let go. I had someone tell me, and I used to do some other things in this industry, that I'd never be able to, because I said, I'm more closeted. I'm more of a garage person. I'm comfortable with it, but I would struggle to be truly successful until we did this, until I could do what Kelly's doing and just roll with who you are, right? And I don't always do that. So I think that would be, on a spiritual side, I got to imagine that's pretty rewarding to see, right? That comfortability level to say, you don't have to hide it. Smoke it if you got it, right?
Smoke it if you got it, gentlemen.
I can't.
It's what's for you.
I won't. We'll wait till the camera stop there. So Kelly, it's been awesome getting to know you, learning about you. I am excited just because of when people have passion, passion excites me. Right? Passion
Mm,
about it, the push and the drive. And it's one thing to be passionate because passion sometimes comes at a price of knowledge, right? There are people who are passionate, but then speak out of pocket, right? It's like,
yeah,
well, I hear what you're saying, but we can't say it cures everything. Like, slow down.
right,
Like, don't go
right.
all in, right? And so, what you do when you over promote is you kind of illegitimize it, which kind of
Yeah.
can be concerning. So, as we kind of wrap up, how's that balance been for you of trying to promote it with not overselling it? Because you can't overpromise because you want to be real. Like, how has that been for you and people in that dealing, like the overpromising versus the change and connection that people have?
I've had to tone it back, to be honest with
Sure.
you, depending on my audience or who I'm talking to, because I forget how people are still so stigmatized. Like my parents won't even like they've lost respect for me. My mother's so sick on 25 pills and they will hardly even consider cannabis because it is still so stigmatized to so many people. So that's the difficult part of it. And remembering that sometimes and remembering that not everybody is comfortable with talking about how children should use cannabis or that they even need to hear about it. It's so scary. You know, we need to scare them instead. But we have an opiate crisis in our country, and I'm sure that you have it in
Oh, yeah.
yours because it's worldwide. And cannabis can be used for harm reduction. It can be used for calming. We're at war. We're just coming out of an apocalypse. We should be spreading this message. We had it taken from us for almost 100 years in our country, and you still have it taken from you. This is a conversation that needs to happen. It needs to happen in grocery store lineups. It needs to happen online. It needs to happen in church services. It needs to happen everywhere. We need to shout it. And I will take 1 minute and say thank you so much, gentlemen, for being spokespeople for the plant who does not have a mouth or a voice of her own. And so you are doing that with this podcast by interviewing myself or others, putting this message out. So bravo to you and thank you so much for doing what you're doing.
I'm going to take your applause, of course. I feel like I have a ton more because I really want to get into the act of cultivation and such, but we do like to keep it a tight hour to have more on. So I think clearly, Kelly, we can continue this conversation a little bit, learn more about Canada from there. And as we're doing with a lot of our guests now, if you're available, and I'm sure you'll be busy on April 20th, but we're going to have a 4-hour, 20-minute live stream here on Wayward Media because cannabis, April 20th. Be sure to check us out, noon p.m. Eastern Standard Time till 4:20 exactly. We'll sign off right at 4:20 and 59 seconds so we can enjoy the holiday as well. So you're welcome to join us on then as well, Kelly. Anytime during the day, we'll send you the link. Open invitations, up to 12 people in the room, just chilling and hanging and talking about what 420 means and the celebration of it. So we hope to see you on there as well. Obviously, we'll have you back to talk about Canada in what you're doing at Kelly's Green Lounge. You can find the link to kellysgreenlounge.ca in the YouTube comments. Check out KGL TV, right? KGL TV had to make some adjustments, Kelly did, from Kelly's Green Lounge to putting it on air. So find them on YouTube as well, KGL TV, where Kelly, her other compadres there up in Canada are talking openly, living it up. Like, I just love it. I got to tell you, I kind of panicked when we lit up for a second, Kelly, right? We're wrapping up, and I kind of was like, stop it. Like, don't do that, because I'm always on Dustin, right? He's a medicinal patient, fully legal, but I still am like, calm down. And I was like, but then I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
He's in Canada. Like, be free. And it's another reminder to me, like, be free, like, relax.
Be free, my friend. Be free. One day, I pray that you will be free with your cannabis use, my friend. I pray that for you.
I will hope so. Thank you, Kelly, for joining us. Great to see you, Dustin, as well. Every Friday, don't forget Fridays live shows on Because Cannabis. You'll hear this show. Well, if you missed it, I don't know why I'm talking to you, but on audio, we hit our podcast about 2 weeks later. The audio versions, iTunes, Spotify, etc. Live shows Friday, whenever we're going to be on board. Thank you, Kelly Addison, for joining us, for talking today openly and honestly about it. Keep kicking ass out there. Like, I know you don't swear, but we're going to give you one. Just keep kicking ass out there. I love what you're doing. Thank you for joining us, and we will talk soon, I am sure.
Thank you, truly.